This is the follow-up of part A2 about the slums. What we've said so far was that the existence of slums is a key characteristic of the cities of the Global South, even though they are not absent from the cities of the North, as suggested by the typology that I presented in the previous video, between 4 types of megacities depending on their level of urban development. This is Kibera in Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya. It is one of the most famous slums in the world because it is one of the most populated. So it is believed that more than 1 million people live in this district. It can be used as a good illustration of the characteristics of these places that we call slums, but in fact they have several names. Slums is very easy to pronounce in English purely, but it mostly applies to that kind of informal district in Asia. So other expressions that can be used in geography to refer to the slums are shanty towns or squatter settlements. No matter the name that we use, the characteristics are the same. First characteristic, the informal dimension, which applies to the fact that this form of district is based on illegal housing. It means that the district has no administrative existence, at least no legal and rightful administrative existence, which raises many issues regarding the taxation of economic activity, regarding the taxation of housing itself, or also security issues, norms regarding electricity or water, all those things. Second characteristic, which is strongly connected to the first one, slums have developed spontaneously. They were not planned by definition. Third characteristic, they are self-built. That is to say, they were not built, certainly not under the aegis of the local authorities, but often they were built by the dwellers themselves, the inhabitants themselves, which is made very visible on pictures and in real life, of course, because the houses are often made of makeshift, of second-hand material like pieces of wood, like plastic. A lot of the roofs are in plastics these days, or corrugated iron. It does not mean that more solid material like bricks or cement are never used. In fact, they are. And actually, inside one squatter settlement, you can find a very vast diversity of levels of housing standards. Some houses will be very solid, some will have electricity and water, and some will be shanties. Third characteristic, the very, very high density of both buildings and inhabitants. Streets are extremely narrow. Streets are often not available to anything else than pedestrians, which raises a lot of problems of connection between slums and the rest of the city, problems for access to transport, modern transport, public transport, and all this. And it's not the only network to which the the slums are not well connected, because the fifth characteristic is that a slum will be, if not totally disconnected from the rest of the city, at least badly connected to all the networks of electricity, clean water, and most importantly, sewage, which raises huge problems of sanitation and so consequently healthcare. Where are the slums in the city? Well, the answer is everywhere. But the pattern, and that's very logical, will often be that the oldest slums will be very central, when in fact most of the slums will be everywhere in the urban area, because slums develop a bit like mushrooms. They develop anywhere they can. Anywhere urban planning is absent, and these places are extremely numerous. You will find a very large diversity of size in the slums, and so you can find slum housing near any road, near railways, near industrial estates when it's very polluting, and so you can't have a legal development of housing there. You find slums near the airport, everywhere. And the thing is that the growth, spatial growth of the cities is so fast that a district, and including a slum, is never located at the outskirts of the town for a very long time. It is very often surrounded, and very soon surrounded, by the rest of the city. About our two case studies, it is extremely difficult to know how many people live in the slums, and so what share of the city consists in slums. Statistics for Mumbai tend to show that slum dwellers represent between 40 and 50% of the population of Mumbai. But in space, the slums represent only 10% of the city, okay, because people are so concentrated. In Lagos, slum housing dominates, but we will see that it does not look as clear as Mumbai. The most famous slum of Lagos is Makoku. It's famous because it is an old one, and it is located near the lagoon, which you can see on the map. So the streets are made of water. They are like canals. Hence this nickname that was given by some journalist of the Venice of Africa. And when you see that picture, you understand why. Just some pictures of other slums in the world. In Mexico City, the name given to slums is Colonias Populares, and you may think for Brazil, you may think about the name favelas, which is also very famous and refers to squatters. An interesting picture about Cairo in Egypt, where you can see the dual city here at a vertical level. Many slums are on the top of the roofs in Cairo, and so you have some legal housing in the first stories of the buildings, and on the roofs you have the shanties. So that's pretty remarkable. When we saw the map at the beginning of the video, we said that even the rich cities of the north are not without any slum. It is particularly true of the megacities of Asia. Hong Kong is famous for this. Hong Kong cannot spread horizontally, because it's surrounded by mountains. So it spreads vertically, and inside many buildings you will have flats divided into very, very, very small homes, as you can see on this picture, which are nicknamed coffin homes. But that's a picture that you will find in many big cities, many attractive cities of the world. You know, in every big city, you need very badly paid people. I mean, society obviously needs very badly paid people for doing the dirty jobs, and they must live somewhere. And it's the same thing in Paris or in New York City. Some people own flats and rent it not to one family, but rent it to many migrant workers who only pay for a bed sometimes. In French, the expression that applies to that form of renting is called les marchands de sommeil. The English term for that would be slumlord. It's when a landlord rents, flats that are not decent in terms of size and facilities and all that. And do not forget that even in France, in Paris, for example, slums have come back. I think they were pretty absent in the 80s and 90s, thanks to urban policies of building of collective housing, tower blocks. Recently, with the increasing inequalities and also with the several migrant crises that Europe has faced, well, you have a return of slums, as you can see near the Parisian ring road, the périphérique here in Aubervilliers. So if we go back to Mumbai, something must be said about the most famous slum in the world, which is Dharavi. As you can see on the map, Dharavi is located, it looks like the most central place in Mumbai. Originally it was not central, it was in the north of the city. But as the city has spread, now Dharavi is very central. And this is interesting. This is interesting because now Dharavi is just neighboring, on the picture you can see it, it's just neighboring one of the recent CBDs, Central Business Districts of Mumbai. So you have a very good image of urban segregation of dual city here. And in Dharavi, well, nobody really knows how many people live there. You have maybe a bit less than 1 million people. So it's very famous. So you can see many reports about Dharavi. If you click on the links which are below the video, you may look at one. Roads are very few. I mean, roads where modern transport, I mean, like buses or cars can use, they are less than 5, I think, and that's normal for the slum. Access to electricity is not really a problem for the people there, but access to water is much more difficult, and above all, access to toilets and sewage systems in general is what is the most rare. And in fact, that is a big issue because of the sanitation problems which are linked to it. Water is supplied mostly by trucks, and so a bit like in very traditional rural areas, some people's job is to transport water. Big blue drums like this are present in front of most houses because they have no taps. Statistics about the number of toilets per inhabitants in Dharavi is one of the classical figures that you find in students' essays in geography, and most of the time they are stupid. In fact, all the time, because nobody knows. Sorry. Sorry about that. Nobody knows how many toilets per people you can find in Dharavi. What is sure is that they are far from being enough. In fact, toilets are so rare that you need to pay for them most of the time. And if you don't have to pay for toilets, they might look very, very bad. And yet Dharavi is not only a place of despair. It is of course a place where life is difficult and standards of living are low. But look at the location. It is also very, very central. And so Dharavi is a good example of a very active and economically dynamic district, which is an issue I will develop a bit more in the next video.